Today's podcast is brought to you in part by Supreme Auctions, the only luxury auction company recommended by the Institute for Luxury Home Marketing. Supreme Auctions is widely recognized as the first auction company to design a program to work alongside and in partnership with luxury real estate professionals and their clients. So go to supremeauctions.com to learn more. So welcome, Michael.
I'm here. You just read my resume and I love it. And I appreciate it.
I really read it. Well, it's so I didn't want to miss any details.
I appreciate it. I'm like a mutt of the industry is what I like to call it, honestly. And I lived in New York. Now I'm in LA, worked in a lot of markets in Miami and San Francisco and Vancouver. So I've been kind of just like pinpointing across the map of the globe.
Really great places. And, I feel really fortunate, Michael. I mean, we've been working really closely over the last few months on the newly released. We just got it out the door this week. It's called The Report 2022, right? Luxury Market Insights.
Yep.
And really and every year I say this, but it gets better and better every year, right? This is really the most visually stunning report, full of comprehensive information about not just what's happening in luxury real estate, right? But all the drivers of luxury real estate, how wealth moves and what's happening. And we've got a lot to talk about today, right? And we want to talk about where we're going to head in the future, which is new in this report. We've not done that before.
It's new. It's, like you said, thank you, Diane. This report, every year we've put something out, and this is my first year doing this report, so we looked at what we've done in the past, and it didn't make sense to follow the same formula. We've been through so much. We're still going through a lot. So yes, we took a look at what happened in 2021. We definitely did. And obviously we'll touch on a lot of those points, but we wanted to give our agents and anyone reading this a look into what we can expect. So where do we go from here? But then also, what do we need to keep in our minds? What are the points that we should kind of just keep front and center, as there's so many different shifts and different markets, and then the globe. And, unlike anything ever before too, Diane, we did this on a global scale. We took a look at the world in this report, and that's the first time it's been done for this. So, we commissioned data from WealthX, worked with so many teams to put this together, and it's out. It's here.
It's out.
We did it.
And at a super interesting global time, right? Like we're taking a snapshot right now, but there's lots of things going on around the globe.
There's a lot of things going a lot of things going on around the globe, things going on here regionally that affect all different markets. We're just kind of starting to get back to this new way of living. Are we back? Are we there? I think sometimes we're still in this weird tug, and it kind of depends where you are. But I feel like we're kind of on that way back to normal, so to speak.
So in this idea of being back to normal, or your phrase, which I love, which is the next normal.
Yep.
How do you, what's the first thing that comes to your mind about how we were impacted in the last 2 years?
Never before did the world just stop, and did our consumer and purchasing behavior shift completely. Everything that we had known and done changed. And it's the things that came out of this that are going to stay with us for quite some time, and some things that will forever be changed. We look at this too, Diane. I think you and I review these numbers all the time, and we look at these increases, and the value of home, as we've always seen it, has just become front and center. That was something that came out of the pandemic, let alone the fact that these purchases are just driven by health and wellness and safety, and so much that came out of it. But it's this fundamental shift in what we knew and then what we're going to be. So it's all these different scenarios that led into this. And, if we look at it, if 2020 was kind of the year of like resilience, 2021 was like the year of reconciliation. It was, the year to kind of start getting back to normal. It's kind of like, I want to say like it's our next normal. We use the term new normal.
Right.
It's like our next normal, because we're at this point where we're starting to look at a few different things, and other things are now front and center that weren't there previously.
It's interesting because the way that we laid the report out, it's very clear that, and we'll talk about this, but this enormous growth in wealth. Okay. And not just in the amount of like true wealth that people have, but how many more people gained it in the last couple of years. And the shift really was from, I want that wealth sitting here and I want to look at it, to I want to live in it, right? So the movement,
but also too, Diane, those wealth gains, I mean, that when we looked at those numbers too, I mean, I think I might have called you when we were looking at these, and we looked like, is this real?
Yeah. Can it be real?
Is this real? Are these numbers accurate? Because 20, like you look at the numbers, like the global, there's 20% growth in some of these pieces, when previously in 2020 was 2%. So right. And then to go from that percentage to 20%, those are individuals, 5 million and over, but that amount of growth in 1 year, I mean, I don't know if we'll ever see anything like that again. We might, we may not, but that's an exponential amount of wealth growth. And I mean, we see it, but I don't think we ever anticipated it being that significant. Did you?
And I think when we look at the predictions that you make and the things that you're saying, hey, look out for this, it's this idea that in that 5 million and above, that population added 600,000 people. So in a 1 year period, there are 600,000 more people worth $5 million or more. And again, the effect lower than that, where people are what we call the mass affluent. Okay. So the mass affluent also had these tremendous gains. And so what does that really mean for the housing market, right? Where people are shifting the money from these investments that they have into the place where they live. What are they looking for now, Michael?
Yeah, they're looking for everything, and they're looking for lifestyle. You brought up a good point that I want to touch on, in that these purchases really became that much more personal this past year. And our agents really talk about lifestyle as a driving factor. Lifestyle, and the luxury survey we have in this report by our property specialists talk about this. Lifestyle was this driving factor of home purchases. But it's interesting. You take this population wealth growth, Diane, and it is huge. The wealth growth within the United States and globally. Then you take certain markets that have already a depleting inventory, yet increased prices. So the real thing that we're going to be looking at too is, when you have all these different components, increased wealth, rising prices, lower inventory, which is going at a certain pace to perhaps outperform the others. So it's kind of like a mix of things, and will inventory allocate? But back to your original question with purchasing, I really think it hit on a few things. Lifestyle is a big one. These purchasers wanted what they want. They wanted it anywhere. They knew what they wanted to get it, and they would pay a premium for it. But then there's other factors that we looked at, and it was actually, sustainability, environmental concerns, which all kind of led into health and wellness, and the increase in HEPA filters in homes and filtration systems and green. It was interesting to see that the focus on the environment was now even more prevalent than before. It's very interesting to see, I should say.
Driving that on a personal level, right? That people wanted to personally be responsible at those levels in these luxurious homes they were purchasing, right?
And for their families. That's the other thing too. And for their families. We all, we stood at a point where we were just kind of locked in a place. When you're locked in a place where your home is everything, the value of this just gets that much greater personally. It's a personal value that we place to this. Home was always a place where we lived, but now it is. I mean, we know it's where we work, where we live, where the family health. It is. We're close to facilities we need to be. It's different than ever before.
So some of the insights that you gave us in this report, when you think about, it's not new news when we talk about this limited inventory and the price increases. I think the really new news in there is this idea of the new map. You call it the new map. Can you talk about that a little bit?
what we've seen out of this pandemic is that there's markets that I don't think we ever anticipated to be as driven as they are now, as these major secondary markets, major markets. I think you and I both know, and when I was originally in New York and now here, we always looked at these global wealth hubs, and they were always kind of the same ones, these cities where the ultra wealthy purchased. There was always these list of 5 to 10 that were very common and focused on. Now it's expanded. So there's secondary markets that have taken a primary focus, but even within those secondary markets, there's additional secondary markets coming out of this. It's the amount of new markets that are being developed are incredible. So it's almost like a domino effect in that you have this one major kind of hub or this one region, and it just continues to flow out. And I really think it's the desire for space. It's some people who want to be back towards near where there's a lot of cultural events happening. It's really a mix. It's this new next normal.
And what's really interesting is you talked about the global cities.
Yep.
Okay. Those aren't going to change, but they're going to be added to in a greater number as the wealth grows, right? And so you think about Texas is not new news.
No.
Austin, Texas is not new news. San Antonio, Texas, right? Where you have a huge presence of for Coldwell Banker is kind of the newest growth area. And sure, 20 years ago with how the population was growing for sure, but that's an example of not just a global center, but suddenly, what about folks moving there?
Oh, yeah.
And then outside of those areas, right, Michael?
Yep, completely. It's interesting, Diane. Those regions, Texas is doing so well now. I've never seen, and I know you're in Texas. There's a lot of people from California looking at Texas too, and vice versa. It's always these two states. It's like the new commute almost. It's like the new commute between the two. But it's crazy the fact that not crazy. It's amazing these markets, but the focus on it. I have friends too, and this is not just there's not certain demographics or certain. It's everywhere. It's this mix that I can work from a different. Like people aren't now constricted to certain cities. They're not even constricted. They're not bound by where their offices are as much because there's remote work. We are. Or there's a hybrid model, and they can move a little further out. But I know so many people. They're permanently remote.
Yeah.
I'm permanently remote.
You are.
But
like the idea that you have a center, right? And then you have a good airport.
Yes.
And you have fiber.
Yes.
You
work from wherever you want.
Wherever you want. And so these areas that nobody really thought about. Tennessee, right? Tennessee is now suddenly a luxury capital in the US for folks in the US.
Yeah.
And I just, and I love those stories.
Like Nashville is on the scene more than ever. And I'm actually going to Nashville later this year. I can't wait. I mean, the music scene there is unbelievable. And the focus on that city, and it's so popular. I've never been. I grew up on the East Coast. I've never been.
Yeah. Well, so here's a really sort of fun fact when you think about Nashville.
Yeah.
It's at the, the peak of its growth right now. And so when you think about Nashville and the city and the music and all that, what it has is land.
Yes.
There's a lot of leafy land areas. And that's the other part of health, sustaining, right? Outdoor space. And people are willing to drive an extra 20 minutes when they do leave their house to get that. Now, that doesn't mean that the attached market, which was shrinking, right? The condo, it was shrinking and now it's grown double digits, right?
Correct. Well, I also think too, what we're going to see when we look at the attached market during, the past few months, we've had a lot of supply chain constraints, especially on the new construction part of that.
Yes.
So as those pieces ease, new construction will take a larger focus in this. And again, certain locations that are just driven with new construction will they've already, like New York City has already seen so much come back. My old bread and butter out there where I grew up, but so much has been, a new focus of that. But, it's interesting to see, Diane, so many of these regions will continue to be a new focus as we embrace the next 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. It'll be great to see the focus on this.
this idea of what's next.
Yeah.
Um, one of the trends that you and I have talked about that we wanted to zero in on for today is this idea that 70% of people that have more than $5 million have a second home,
Yes, they do.
right? And
Yeah.
talk about a market opening. And that's where these secondary markets are coming from, right? So
Big time, big time. And it's also, it's the secondary markets, and there's this kind of blurred line in between primary and secondary residences too that we've
yes.
seen. There's
Mhm.
this want for, perhaps there's certain secondary residences, but the primary residences to become even larger. So a lot of people, at one point kind of upsized, they kind of went larger. They wanted more space. This was this immediate need to add. But now it's the fact that it's such a safe haven within United States real estate that they want this secondary home to add to the portfolio. So you talked about, asset diversification, increasing the portfolio. Real estate is on an upward trajectory with
Right.
prices. So it's a safe haven. So it's this blend now too, now that we're looking at primary, secondary, and then even tertiary. So it just continues to grow, and we'll see it. And then obviously as more people come into the country from international, it'll be a
Right.
whole focus.
Well, and you lead global luxury
Yes.
for Coldwell Banker. And so what are you seeing in the international buyers? Has that been unlocked now?
We've started to. A lot of markets have seen it. They've started to see it. I think, when we had the Omicron wave, it put a little bit of a damper
Mhm.
in things as cemetery restrictions were put in force a little bit stronger than before. So a lot of markets have seen it. They've started to see it. But then they're seeing even more interest. Do I think that this year will be very big for international? I do, just because of the pent up demand and the fact
Yes.
that there's so much that they've wanted to take part in, and almost from a distance have seen where these markets have grown. But what will be interesting is, will these international purchasers look immediately to the destinations they were going to go first, or are they going to look at some of these secondary markets that were created, and then how do we take the already very depleted inventory in those areas and then take an international demand onto this too? So will demand be off the charts? I think that's what we're kind of looking at here, as we have factors galore to add to what could come over this. So it's
Yeah, your global presence, though, in
yes.
Italy and in France and in Mexico, Spain,
Yeah.
are you seeing those folks moving? We're so U.S. centric, we can't help it, right? It's why
I
why
know.
the globe loves us so much. But but like it, not in terms of in the global network
Yeah.
for Coldwell, like are people going from Spain to France, and are those markets more open, and what's happening there?
They are. They are. And that's a very good point. Yes. And also US to there too, the reverse.
Yes.
Yes. And really what it is it's as the COVID restrictions are released, and as
Yes.
the virus goes endemic in certain regions, it's as that occurs, the interest just is spurring. So yes, the reverse is very much happening. I'm speaking to a lot of our ambassadors over in Europe, and they're seeing so much renewed interest. Even I was talking to some other agents, here, and a lot of them are actually planning summer trips to go look at property in Europe. So I actually think the summer will be quite incredible, not only for tourism, which I know will come back in a
Right.
very big way, but the home buying market in Europe, between some of the countries, obviously in those regions and the EU and so forth, but then also from US purchasers alike.
Well, we know in talking with one of your top folks in Mexico that like Portugal is suddenly a real destination.
Yes.
And so that's exciting.
I've never been.
One other thing that I really want to talk about is this. Um, I don't mean it to be provocative, but it kind of is. And
Mhm.
we are all like amazed at how high the prices are going.
Right.
Okay. But when you look at it compared to the rising wealth,
Right.
is it really? Or is it just staying in line?
I think it happened all quite quickly.
Right.
I think that's what we always knew, it would increase in a certain way. But those who kind of waited are now looking and saying, "Oh, I should have bought
Hmm.
then." But now, if you don't buy now, you'll be saying that in a few years.
Right.
So, but
Right.
then the other thing too, spoke to a few agents, and The other thing that's very real too is buyer fatigue, because
Oh,
there's,
yeah.
you're putting in so many offers and it's so tough. But again, it's working with, our property specialists to really help on this. But a lot, there's a lot of offers sometimes. It's a very real thing. But I think it happened quicker than we anticipated in a higher trajectory.
Right, right.
So I think what we're looking at, and even I'm looking at things out here for myself too. I think we're just kind of adjusting the mindset and expectation to get to kind of where we were previously. But I agree with you. I think it just happened a little bit quicker than we anticipated. But it's the demand is most certainly still there.
What you and I talked about this a little bit, right? Augmented reality, virtual reality. What can the luxury consumer expect from the future of real estate?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. It's a good point. VR, AR, and technology will always be there, and it'll be there in a big way. And I say that it will be a standard now in a lot of the marketing pieces that agents do. There's no question. It's just part of where we are. The consumers expect it, though it will never replace the human touch of the agents. So
Right.
I see this kind of hybrid. I say that technology will continue to advance as it should, and it's a huge part of our business. It opens up new avenues for new markets to interact with others. It allowed our business to succeed and now thrive. So I'm thankful for all the technology advances that we had, though I look now to the conditions are just ever changing in certain regions. And that's why the focus on the human connection and the human touch and working with someone who knows the market in and out and is on top of these things is actually now more paramount than ever. That this
An
is
advisor.
an advisor, a trusted advisor. And these purchases are now so much more personal than they were. It was always a very big decision. There's no question. Buying and selling homes was always paramount. But look what we're driven by. We're driven by these health and wellness and safety, considerations now, and family and well-being and long-term, longevity. There's so many things that go into it. So the essence of this has taken on a whole new paradigm.
So, when you think about, and it's hard, right? Because this thing flew by in some ways, and in other ways, it was kind of a drudgery, the day-to-day part of it. But there's
Yeah.
so many new things that are just now what we do. My business card is now a QR code.
Yeah. I still have cards.
Yep. And I have them.
They're really nice, but I don't have them. I hand them out.
Well,
I kind of feel funny doing it.
Yeah. And when we think about that, right, and we think about how behavior of walking into a restaurant and using a QR code to look at, and how did that expand our minds?
Right.
In the case of choosing a home and communicating with people,
Yep.
we moved from face to face, had to touch, had to feel, to a live streaming or a FaceTime walkthrough or excellent videography, or in the case of, how do you use augmented or virtual reality to really
Right.
demonstrate this with the agent. So what other things are you seeing for the future of the real estate agent?
Yeah.
Right? How is the professional and the profession
Mhm.
going to be impacted by all this?
So much. So, what you said too, it's funny. I look at these cards. I have so many left over. I have a lot. I haven't really handed many out, but also, I don't know as many people want them if I hand them out, but they're there if someone does. What's going to really shift with this is, we look at, I'm looking on the kind of the listing side here. You look at how depleted inventory is in certain regions, and then how competitive it is to, for these listings to come up and so forth. So for me, it's kind of this focus on individual agent marketing. There's a lot that there's a lot that we can do. There's a lot that shifted though. I really feel that consumers are looking for this level of authenticity and sense of community like never before. I really feel that there's this genuine need to connect with this person on a level that that maybe never was there, and it was more transactional in nature. This is now just more of a personal thing. So when I meet with agents and I talk to them, I always look at what they're doing on their social media and their marketing to display not only themselves as an expert, but then to show authenticity in as they do it. So I also take a look at this too, and this kind of goes into like the role of the real estate agent that has just increased tremendously. So the agents are now they've always been an important part of this transaction and a vital part, but their role has just increased tenfold. We said they are trusted advisors, but they really also have to be kind of global wealth experts, lifestyle advisors, aficionados on all different things going on, and their network has had to expand. So I really would say that what's going to change a lot for us is, the role of the agent continues to just take a higher and higher importance in these decisions. And as such, there's more knowledge and insight that's needed on day-to-day transactions, but then also individual marketing, in ways we connect with others, really strive now more than ever to have this authenticity factor. So it's interesting to kind of see the mix of the two. But yes, and even before too, VR, AR, digital marketing, the need for amazing photos and everything should be fantastic.
Just demonstrating, and professionals can do this, right? Through photography and great videography, they can put you there.
Yes.
And that's super important. I think when I also think about the agent and the next generation of the agent, right, which we're in the middle of, by the way.
Yes.
It's this idea that the mindset shift from I have all of these things to show you,
Mm-hmm.
but I might not have a lot to show you.
Yeah.
So I need to talk to you about what do you really want,
Yep.
and how do we put together something that fits all of that might look very different than what you thought. So for example, I'm in LA. I really want to
Yep.
go to Nashville.
Yep.
And I want a second home there. And there's just nothing available. How do you really become so connected that really what they really want after talking to them is something coastal?
Yes.
And I think while we've thought that's always been there, I'm not 100% sure it has been.
Right.
The networks are now so much more tightly connected, where real estate professionals need to know people in every market.
Everywhere.
Right?
Everywhere.
The advising, when I talk to agents like when you do, it's this. What comes to my mind is what's happening in the luxury auto industry.
Oh yeah.
Where it used to be that really, regardless of what vehicle you wanted, you could walk on the lot.
Uh-huh.
And really, what they're trying to get people to do now is to order.
Oh yes.
Exactly what you want.
Uh-huh.
And part of that was driven by this global supply chain sort of crisis. But then the crisis really made the business folks step back and go, what is really the best way to do this?
Yep.
And I see the housing market doing a little bit of the same.
Wow. Yeah.
Right? Where instead of it's, hey, look, I found this house online.
Right.
Take it and I want to buy it.
Yeah.
How do we really curate as a professional, real estate professional? How do we curate exactly what it is that you want?
Such a great way to look at it. In comparing auto, to that, you're right. What's interesting too is the decisions have to be made so much more in real time. There's not as much time to linger on it. So it's this, you want it, you do it now. So even if you don't get it right now, you decide now, and then you will get it.
Right.
I was in the same. My car, I had to wait 6 months for it, and thankfully it came at the right time. It's electric, but that's part of it too. It's like you said. When you said that, I was nodding in my head. I was like, I was so close to having two cars at one point because I had to extend the lease.
Yes.
But I wanted that electric car, so I wanted that car.
And when you think about the top real estate professionals and how the shift is it's just so predominant that there's just not all these homes.
Yes.
And how do they make sure that they're advising folks a little differently than they used to? So
you're right.
Yeah, Michael, I do want to give you the last word because I love this report. It's stunning. It's beautiful. It's available on the Global Luxury blog, correct? You can go out and take a look at it.
It is.
It's visually stunning, but what's like the one last thing? I'm going to put you on the spot, but really, what's that one last thing that we didn't cover that you think, gosh, I want to make sure people really understand that this is what we see happening?
Okay. Well, there's two things. One is that I forgot to mention with this report is that I want people to know that it's large, but you can digest this in sections. We made it so that you can take the first section and read it on its own. You can take the section and the second section and read it on its own. So it's not overwhelming. So you can take pieces and look at it individually. But if there's one thing that I could say that I want to take out of this report, oh, I'd have to say it's that it's like I said before, it's not the new normal, it's the next normal. And it's how we anticipate what the next normal will be that we will keep driving success in this industry. I really do say it's being a step ahead. That's what I use every day in what I do with work and life and global luxury as a whole, but individual with agents too. What can I keep doing to be a step ahead in all that we do so that the next normal becomes our normal and that word next kind of drops?
Terrific. That's really terrific. I like that. I'm going to leave it with that word as anticipate, pay attention.
Attention.
So
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you for the time. I always love talking.
I love it. This is great. I'll do this anytime.
Yay. So thanks again. And we're wrapping it up.
A pleasure. Thanks again, Diane.